One of Pokemon's biggest games is getting shut down in just 3 days, and no, you are not getting your money back. Guys, I wish I were kidding, but Pokemon fans in a few select countries will permanently lose access to their accounts on November 30th, and the truth is that it's all because Pokemon went with what many would consider a very greedy monetization strategy. And it actually gets worse, because this game has easily made Pokemon over $100 million, and yet that is still not enough. Players will ultimately be the ones that end up paying the price. So today, let's dive deep to figure out what exactly is going on with Pokemon this time. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Now, before we jump in, I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving if you do celebrate. I am, of course, tremendously thankful for all of you guys who have been enjoying the channel and the content lately. Seriously, thank you guys so much for all the likes, the hypes, and everything over the last couple of months. I'm really looking forward to all the content that we're going to be making going into 2026. All right, let's jump right in here. Pokemon game shutting down for some players on November 30th. What Pokemon game is shutting down? Well, of course, it is Pokemon Unite, but there is a catch. It is only shutting down for 2 specific countries on November 30th. Now, for those of you that don't know what Pokemon Unite is, this was basically Pokemon's take on the MOBA genre. It's pretty much League of Legends, but with Pokemon, and I know that that is a super oversimplification, and I remember when they first announced this game, I was really excited because back in college I liked playing League. I haven't really played it for quite a while, although I do understand why people like it and I do see the appeal there. I've just never really been a big MOBA guy, but I thought, hey, I like the Pokemon franchise. League of Legends is super successful. Maybe they could do something pretty cool there, right? The game came out on Switch first, then it came out on mobile, and despite it being free to play and having those mobile monetization strategies, I didn't really mind it, right? And later in this video, I'm going to give you guys my thoughts and opinions on the monetization strategy of Pokemon Unite, because that is the hot button topic we're going to be talking about today. But I did quickly lose interest in the game because they nerfed Gengar, right? I mean, I played the game for maybe like a week or two. They nerfed Gengar and I was like, okay, GG, I'm done. I don't actually care about the game anymore. And then I quit, and that was it. So what exactly is going on with Pokemon Unite now? The game has been out for over 4 years at this point. Where is it shutting down? How is it shutting down? Why is it shutting down? Let's get into it, folks. Pokemon Unite will shut down its servers in Belgium and the Netherlands on November 30th, ending support for players in these regions permanently. While the exact reason has not been confirmed, there are several clues that suggest why Pokemon Unite is leaving fans behind in these regions. It's abundantly clear. We know the answer. We're going to talk about that later in this video, but the article goes on to say this is not the first time the Pokemon Company and Nintendo have shut down one of their mobile titles. In the past, games like Pokemon Duel and Pokemon Rumble Rush were abandoned after struggling globally. However, it appears that Pokemon Unite is being shut down in Belgium and the Netherlands for a completely different reason. Belgium and the Netherlands have been pioneers in establishing laws against gacha mechanics and loot boxes in video games, which seem to be the main reason for Pokemon Unite's server shutdowns in these regions on November 30th. These countries argue that certain RNG based microtransactions in games may violate their anti-gambling laws, leading to new regulations that force developers to remove such features. Instead of complying with these rules, Pokemon Unite has seemingly chosen to shut down its servers, likely because those microtransactions are central to its sustainability. It's also worth noting that the ban covers all versions of the game across iOS, Android, and Nintendo Switch. So then the first thing that I thought of was, okay, well, is this just the beginning of the end for Pokemon Unite, right? I mean, Screen Rant goes on to elaborate that the game has had over 200 million downloads as of July of 2024, but the end of an era is coming for the game in these 2 countries shortly. And this has been a hot button topic in the gaming industry ever since, I mean, it landed on my radar back when Advanced Warfare came out, right? Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, remember they had loot boxes in that game and you could get legendary variants of guns that were literally just stronger than anything else that you could get for free. And yes, technically you could get those legendary variants for free by just playing the game, but the drop rate was so low that it's like you're probably not going to get the good ones unless you spend money. And that's when loot box RNG first landed on my radar, and it's been an issue in the gaming community ever since, right? And most people would say that they're not a fan of RNG microtransactions. I mean, really, that is like the most popular opinion. And so as laws and regulations start to catch up to the gaming industry, the question becomes, if more countries, especially in Europe, start to adopt the same principles and laws as Belgium and the Netherlands, will Pokemon continue to shut down Pokemon Unite in more countries as these things become law, right? Like this could just be the first domino that causes Pokemon Unite to collapse entirely. Now, it's also possible that if the game is super successful still continues to be very popular and there is a demand for the game, that Timmy Studio Group and Pokemon could come to a conclusion that, okay, we need to change the monetization strategy if we want to keep this game alive. Maybe they'll change it to a one-time purchase thing, or maybe they'll stick with the battle pass system, which we will talk about later in this video. But that was the first thing I thought of, right? Like, okay, this is only happening in 2 countries for now. Will it get worse? Maybe it will. We'll talk about that later. But this is what was actually posted on Pokemon Unite's website. This is an official statement from Pokemon themselves. Notice of termination. Thank you to everyone for your continued support of Pokemon Unite. Unfortunately, we have made the difficult decision to end service for Pokemon Unite in Belgium and the Netherlands from November 30th 2025. I'm recording this on the 26th. You're probably watching this on the 27th, but you may even be watching this after the game is already gone. GG. As of November 30th 2025, service for Pokemon Unite will end in Belgium and the Netherlands. The app will no longer be available to download on mobile devices or Nintendo Switch beyond that date. Players may reach out to support for any issues before November 30th 2025. We'd like to thank our players in Belgium and the Netherlands for their support, and we apologize for any inconvenience. Now, some users actually speculated that maybe it's the case that players in Belgium and the Netherlands could circumvent this by just using a VPN, right? I mean, that's pretty simple. I'm sure many countries already do this. Many players of many different games have to do this to play their favorite games, right? You download a VPN, you connect somewhere else. But the problem is that I'm pretty sure, and I don't know this for certain, right? So I could be wrong. You can let me know in the comment section below. Again, I've said this in many videos. I'll say it again. I am top 3 biggest goofballs on YouTube. I don't know what I'm talking about. We're talking about video games. Okay. So if you're looking for Ivy School research here, you ain't getting it. All right. You're getting a dude in his apartment in Queens, New York. Okay. But anyway, my understanding is that service is ending for the game based on the region of where the game was downloaded, right? So for those of you that don't know, on the Google Play Store, for example, some games exist in different formats in different regions, right? And so they may have an APK, that's the game file. They may have that for the United States or for an international version, and then they may have another version for Russia or another version for wherever, right? And sometimes this has to do with local laws, regulations, maybe currency conversion, things like that. There's some various different reasons why that might be the case. What some fans are speculating is that you may not be able to use a VPN because it's not where you're connecting from right now, it's where you've downloaded the game, right? And so in order for a player from Belgium to get access to their account, they need to connect with the version of the game that they downloaded, and if that's no longer available, then GG, it's gone. That might not be the case. Again, this is speculation on my part. That's what I've heard. I could be completely wrong here, but the craziest part about this is that Pokemon Unite is still getting regular updates. I mean, I'm pretty sure this game was even featured in recent Pokemon Directs, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like, for example, right now is the Vaporeon event. They just put Vaporeon in the game. Same thing with Delmies. The license for this Pokemon came out on November 14th 2025. Vaporeon came out November 20th 2025. This is like, I mean, it's Vaporeon. This is a lot of people's favorite Pokemon ever, right? And if we take a look at the Apple App Store here for the game, you'll find that the last update technically came out October 23rd for bug fixes. September 4th, they said Palma joins the fray, season 34 battle pass, things like that. Like, this is not a dead game. This is a game that people actively play and enjoy. Currently has a 4.7 rating on the App Store. So it's just kind of crazy to be talking about like a game that is financially successful, which we will talk about later in the video. This game has made a ridiculous amount of money, boys, as you might expect from a free-to-play mobile game, but it's making money, getting updates, big updates at that. It's not really in life support, and yet because of the nature of the monetization here, we're seeing it shut down in 2 countries, and depending on how laws change, that could continue. So let's dig a little bit deeper to figure out what exactly is wrong with Pokemon Unite that will be causing it to get shut down in these 2 countries. Well, as it's reported here, Pokemon Unite has reached a new low in the eyes of its community as the game is now prioritizing monetization and its predatory gacha systems over the actual game itself, leading to 2 countries losing access to the game entirely. Just in September, Pokemon Unite released 2 major updates that both introduced controversial changes that continue to alienate all but the most dedicated players willing to put up with the game's ludicrous monetization attempts. Even for a modern free-to-play game that needs to turn a profit to keep the lights on, every single element of Unite outside the gameplay itself feels like it lends itself towards making money and not bettering the overall experience. Just turning on the game will have you clearing through pages of full screen ads for different ways to spend money, and the actual game itself has only leaned further into these tendencies with borderline predatory monetization attempts. In the big September 5th update for the game that added new events and content, the Pokemon Company also announced that changes are coming to Unite's Battle Pass structure. The Battle Pass offers players exclusive cosmetics for their character and profile, as well as 2 Pokemon per season. This past month, the price for the Battle Pass increased from 490 EOS gems to 690 EOS gems. Nice. In terms of raw price increase, this takes the cost of the battle pass from $7.99 to roughly $10 or $11. This wouldn't be too bad on its own based on the cost of other battle passes in games like Fortnite or Valorant, but Unite doesn't operate on direct purchases for most of its paid content. Classic monetization strategy, folks. As you can see here, this is a screenshot from the in-game shop. Now, maybe this has changed since September. We are talking about the end of November here, but as of the writing of this article, it looks like you could buy 490 EOS gems for $8, but you cannot buy 690 EOS gems for whatever that price might be. You now have to buy both the 490 and the 245 bundles in order to purchase the battle pass. Not the end of the world, but it is definitely annoying, and this is a very common practice for this monetization strategy, but that's not where it stops. Okay, if that was the only area Unite price gouged its customers, it would be a good example of a bad change. However, Unite and its developers, whether they are directly involved in pricing or not, have been actively over monetizing the game since it launched. The cost for Hollowware, Unite's name for special skins and cosmetics for the playable Pokemon, stretches from $5 for a basic skin to $40 for one that adds unique effects and animations to the Pokemon while you play. This far outstrips some bundles offered by other games like Fortnite, which tend to charge $20 for skins, accessories, and other goodies, and some of the special effects for moves on Unite skins aren't even included unless you dive into the next issue. What happens if you missed a previous battle pass and want to get exclusive cosmetics from it? Well, Unite offers something called Prize Machine, where you can throw Pokeballs at a selection of previously available items to try and fill up a numbered gauge to get them. Sounds great, right? Unfortunately, any substantial prize like premium trainer outfits or Hollowware requires up to 30 hits on the gauge, and you only get 2 Pokeballs every 12 hours to use, with a maximum and extremely uncommon roll of 5 hits per ball. Okay, so at best, if you're super lucky, you're going to get 2 free rolls of 5 hits, so that is 10 hits every 12 hours, but the prize gauge on each item resets every 24 hours, so there is no actual way to earn even some of the middling prizes at all. Oh, but don't worry, you can pay EOS gems to reduce the Pokeball cooldown if you really want something. Now look, I'm going to share with you guys my thoughts and opinions on all of this later in the video. Skins for Pokemon, for me, is it scummy? Yes. Do I really care that much? Not really. I mean, it's cosmetics. Would I rather them not monetize like this? Sure, right? But we'll talk about that later. Again, it's cosmetics for a free-to-play game. I mean, it is what it is. But I just googled Pokemon Unite loot boxes, and this video actually came up from 4 years ago, July of 2021, by a YouTuber who goes by the name Let's Not. I've never watched their videos before, so I don't know anything about them, but their content was the first thing that came up when I looked up loot boxes here. And here you can see he did a 5 pull and got socks, a hat, another pair of socks, boots, and a hat. So we got what was that, 2 hats, 2 pairs of socks, and some boots. Okay, so yeah, I mean, maybe this is not the best example of what you can get here. We've got some item enhancers here, which, as far as I remember, again, I played this game back when it first came out. You could use the item enhancers to literally level up some of the held items for the Pokemon. Again, this video came out in 2021, so I haven't played the game since then. Maybe they've changed this system since then, but I mean, if you've played any free-to-play mobile game, this is very familiar to you, right? You've got 3 different kinds of currency in the top here, and you can exchange some amount of it, and you get a bunch of different pulls here from effectively a loot box, right? I mean, that's what this is. It's a loot box. So then the question becomes, what's going on with Belgium and the Netherlands when it comes to loot boxes? Here we have a report from gamesindustry.biz, loot box state of play 2024. This was last year. Okay, at the time that they wrote this article, several countries have imposed various requirements that must be separately complied with, mostly focused on 1, disclosing the presence of loot boxes in product listings and advertising, disclosing loot box probabilities in specific ways, and 3, imposing minimum age ratings against games with loot boxes. These rules stem from either consumer protection law or newly created dedicated regulations, and most of the free-to-play mobile games that I've played have done this, right? They've followed all these laws. But let's scroll down a little bit more here and see what Belgium's got going on here. Okay, some companies remain non-compliant with the Belgian gambling law requirement that loot boxes are prohibited. Very recently, Pokemon Unite decided to comply by disallowing in-game purchases by Belgian players and will eventually entirely withdraw services from the country. We now know that that is happening in just a couple of days. We know the Belgian gambling regulator is struggling to actively enforce the ban and even recently admitted that a ban is disproportionate, but it could at any moment decide to criminally prosecute companies for illegally selling loot boxes. Please respect the law by either removing your games with loot boxes from that country or releasing an alternative version without paid loot boxes. Okay, so I guess this article must be written for people that are making games. Okay, let's talk about the Netherlands. Following a March 2022 court decision, all paid loot boxes, including those offering rewards that can subsequently be transferred between players, are lawful in the Netherlands. Even so, companies have been overly cautious complying by also not offering loot boxes to Dutch players since then, but that is unnecessary. It is permitted to sell loot boxes in the Netherlands. In addition, the previous Dutch government wanted to ban loot boxes to effectively overturn the court decision. However, a new government is now in power and it has confirmed to me in September of 2024 that it does not have such plans. However, being permitted to sell loot boxes does not mean that no other rules apply. In-game purchase offers must comply with overarching consumer protection law. The regulator recently fined Epic Games over 1.1 million euros for various breaches of consumer protection law that occurred when the company offered in-game purchases in Fortnite. An appeal is pending. This indicates that the national regulator is willing to act, and the loot box related enforcements may also be imminent in the Netherlands and elsewhere. Okay, so again, loot boxes are apparently not banned in Netherlands, but they have very strict rules and they will take you to court, as you can see here with Epic Games. And so what Pokemon and Timmy Studio Group and whoever else is involved here, what they decided was, all right, you know what, screw that, we're not risking getting sued, we're not risking the bad press, we're not risking this, that, or the other thing. They just looked at it and said, hey, here's our player base from those two countries. Is it worth it to create a whole new version? Is it worth it to support those countries? And they said, you know what, nah, forget it, screw them, we'll just pull the game from their app store and GG, it's sorry, it is what it is. So okay, Pokemon is shutting down in the Netherlands and in Belgium, but how much money did they actually make off of Pokemon Unite? Like, maybe it's the case that this game is just not that successful and so they just don't have a financial incentive to support all of their players, right? Well, unsurprisingly, they've made a lot of money off of Pokemon Unite, right? And it's because of their monetization model. Now, this was posted back in July of 2024, so about a year and a half ago. Pokemon Unite catches $83 million on mobile as it celebrates its first 3 years. In almost 3 years, Pokemon Unite has generated $82.7 million in gross revenue on mobile. Unite has generated 29% of its total mobile revenue from the United States market, bro. We are a third of that entire revenue generation. That is crazy. That's probably why they don't care about Belgium or the Netherlands, because the whales are all in the United States. As long as they keep that, that's their biggest market. That's what makes the most money. To put this into perspective, this game alone has made enough money to fund the next 6 Pokemon Legends EAs. Okay, the leaks for that Pokemon Legends EA development costed only 13 million. All right, so this game made a ridiculous amount of money. The US represents its most lucrative market at 29% of total revenue. Japan follows at 25% of player spending, while South Korea ranks third at 7%. Wow. So more than 50% of the market is just Japan and the United States, and everyone else makes the other 50%. That's insane. And by the way, this is just on mobile. If you guys didn't know, Pokemon Unite actually came out first on the Nintendo Switch. I think it came out a month or two early on Switch. So if you had a Switch, you got to play the game early, then it came out on mobile. Okay, so what are the odds that the Switch version made tens of millions of dollars? The answer is absolutely. It absolutely did, especially if it was the exclusive platform at launch. All the hype is around the game at launch. All of the biggest whales and people trying the game are going to try it at launch, and the most amount of money that people spend is typically during that hype period at launch on the Switch. Okay, and so really, if we just assume that the Switch players spent a modest $17 million on this game, then this game made them over $100 million. It is what it is. And again, this 83 million is from a year and a half ago. So mobile players have spent even more than that. And if we're being honest, I think it is completely fair and reasonable, again, factoring in the last year and a half from mobile and factoring in all 4 years of the Switch player base, right? This game has easily made 120 million, if not more. Easily. Not even, it's not a question in my mind that this game has made that much money. And so it definitely is frustrating for players that like see the game making all this money, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And because the Netherlands and Belgium are just not that profitable of regions, I assume they're just not going to support support it anymore. And like, look, they could make the game available there. They could tweak the monetization system just for those specific countries. They could make it work, but Pokemon's looking at it and saying like, hey, it's just the cost of doing business. You guys aren't really worth it. Sorry, GG. Move somewhere else if you want to play the game. Let's see what people over on Reddit have to say. What will happen after November 30th? I was told last week that it will be stopped and shut down in the Netherlands and Belgium on November 30th next year. Does anyone know what will happen then and thereafter? And does anyone know the reason for why it's shutting down? I'm not a regular player per se. I come and go with this game, but when I do decide to play, it's fun and I like it. I've also never spent real money on this, though many times I really wanted to do it. Now I'm glad I never did, but I'm also thinking because it's now just a bit more than a year left for me since I live in the Netherlands, perhaps I should play it more and enjoy it while I still can. What are your thoughts about this game shutting down? Listen, hey, Snippy, okay, Snippy, you're part of the problem, okay? You never spent the money on the game, and that's why they're looking at the Netherlands and saying like, hey, these guys don't spend any money. We're not going to adopt the game. Okay, I'm kidding, okay? This is not Snippy's fault. Snippy's just enjoying the game. This does suck. I genuinely mean that. I'm just goofing around, okay? This person says they're getting banned because of adding more gacha stuff, kind of like gambling, which is against the law. They can make another version without the gacha stuff, but they would rather not because they're making more money by doing what they're doing right now. I think you might be able to play the offline mode of the game against bots, but won't receive any updates after the ban. That's pretty cool, at least, although new players can't play it because it's not going to be in the app store anymore for those countries. This person says, I wonder if a VPN might work, and this is the response. It might not, since the app is based on the region your app store / play store is on. This is what I was saying earlier in the video. So if you are not on the same version, you won't be able to go online if you don't get updates. You might need to change the region in your app store / play store, because if a new version comes out, you would need to download it from there. VPN will only work as long as you are on the same version as everyone else. Exactly right. This is a live service game. There's constantly being updates, new Pokemon. It's online only, pretty much. I mean, there's an offline mode, but like if you want to play the main game modes, like you're gonna have to get the latest version. And so there you go. This was posted over on the Pokemon official forums. Pokemon Unite shutting down in Belgium and Netherlands. I don't know about everyone else here, but I absolutely refuse to lose the one save file / in-game account I have been playing on since the game's release. We need something to happen so the game can stay online here in Belgium and Netherlands. I assume a shutdown here means no legit copy to enter tournaments and earn that lofty slot in the Pokemon World Championships. Not only that, of course, I'm not the only one who built a roster of Pokemon in game, earned or bought hollowware for them, got every battle item and hold item, etc. It may not be the best game ever, but it's still a game we come back to, have an active membership in, etc. I'm still kind of hoping it's fake news. I mean, Cerebi hasn't even reported on it yet, but with a certain law in place here, what can we do to ensure not losing this game? This was posted in September of last year. I'm sorry to tell you, Shadow Ocean Mew, but here we are over a year later and there have been no changes. The game's definitely apparently shutting down. Person says this is real news. Here's the official link, but I don't think Timmy Studio Group will change their mind, and I honestly think Unite is doing you guys a favor. Look at the game now and imagine how the game will be after November of 2025. What they're referring to here is bots. I believe that, and again, I haven't played the game since the launch, but I'm pretty sure one of the current problems with the game, or at least this was a problem last year, was that there were a lot of bots playing the game and they would play as Gengar, and that would just be annoying. So yeah, people are upset about this, right? I mean, rightfully so. And this is the whole point of the Stop Killing Games movement. If you guys remember a few months ago, the Stop Killing Games initiative was started by gamers for gamers. It really just had a very simple mission. If your game is going to shut down, at least release the source code or something, so that way if there's a modding community or a private server community that rallies around the game, they could come together and make the game playable, right? At least make the game playable. That's really all players want, right? And that's the problem with these live service games, is that once it is no longer profitable, or once it gets banned in a certain country, then that's it, right? Any progress you've made, any money you've spent, it's all gone. It's gone forever. And beyond that, right, like not even just the fact that you lose what you spent your money on, because realistically, right, like this is nothing new. If you spend your money on a digital product, you do not own that product. You own a license to access the product that can be revoked at any time. There are no exceptions to this. Any game that you've ever bought a microtransaction for, there is no guarantee that you will have that in perpetuity, which is why I'm such a big fan of physical media here, okay? But beyond just the fact that players are losing access to their progress and their account, the problem is that people won't be able to play the game, right? And so like, you know, even if you don't like Pokemon Unite, there are a lot of people that did really enjoy it, right? Maybe they played it with their significant other, or they played it with their kids, or they played it with whoever, and you know, in 5-10 years they might get nostalgic for for Pokemon Unite and they want to go back and play it, and they won't be able to, right? At least as far as we know, if you live in the Netherlands or in Belgium, right? And that's really the big issue with the stop killing games thing. And really the reason that got so popular is because like a lot of great games are just being lost to time. You know, that's one of the cool things about growing up when I grew up, is that if I played, you know, Super Mario 64 DS on my Nintendo DS, I played it if I was sick home from school, I would play that on the couch, right? And I can do that. I can still do that all these years later. I could go back and pop in the same cartridge and I can play the game exactly as it was. But kids these days who grew up with season 3 of Fortnite and they missed season 3 of Fortnite, well, that's gone, right? It's just not coming back, you know what I mean? And so in the same way, that's the big problem with Unite shutting down for these two countries, and it could happen to more countries in the future. So that's kind of what's going on with Pokemon Unite. And now I want to kind of just touch on my thoughts on this. As many of you guys know, I do have a background in mobile gaming. I've played plenty of mobile games. I've even done consulting for at least one game that I can think of off the top of my head, and I really don't mind mobile games, right? I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, some of the most popular games that have come out in the last 5 or 10 years are either mobile games or free-to-play games entirely, right? I mean, like League of Legends, Fortnite, Genshin Impact, Marvel Rivals, right? Just because a game is free or just because a game is on mobile doesn't inherently mean that the game is bad, right? And even if a game has a sort of predatory monetization strategy that I personally don't love, I really do struggle to criticize games for that because the game is free, right? And all of the free-to-play games that I've played, you can still easily get 5, 10, 15 or more hours of gameplay for free without spending any money, right? Now, of course, some monetization strategies are better than others, right? I like Fortnite's monetization strategy because you can just go into the shop and you can just buy the thing that you want and that's it, right? Genshin Impact is a little bit, you know, it's like it's literally loot boxes, right? Like you're doing summons, at least there's a pity, but it's still, you're probably going to spend a lot of money if you want to get every character, especially if you want to like 6-star them or whatever. But no matter what, right? Like if the game is free and you can get 5, 10, 15 hours of fun and excitement out of that game without spending any money, I do struggle to really criticize that strategy because, and again, this is the same message that I've had in a lot of these videos, money's tight right now. You know what I mean? I mean, hey, I'm at least for me, I don't know about y'all, but like it is for me. And so, you know, for some people that don't have disposable income to spend even $20, $30, $40 or more, upwards of $70, $80 on a video game, at least they can download Genshin Impact and they can play that game for free. Are they going to get their favorite character? Probably not. Are they going to be able to complete all the content in the game? Maybe if they're good, maybe if they're lucky, right? Maybe not. But for people that just simply do not have the money to spend on video games because of the cost of living, the cost of insurance, the cost of everyday necessities, food, water, shelter, everything, the price of everything are super high right now, right? And especially when you consider, like I'm lucky to be in the position that I'm in where I live in the United States. You know, the New York City is very expensive to live here, but like if we zoom out and look at the world, I mean, there are people in other countries where like they absolutely can't afford to spend money on video games. It's just out of their it's just not possible, right? And hopefully things get better for them, you know what I mean? But for those people, they do have games that they can play, and these games are funded by the whales, right? The games are funded by the people that are doing the maximum pulls for the latest gacha character in whatever game it is. And so again, I don't love the monetization strategy of these games, right? Obviously I would rather the game not have loot mechanics, of course, right? Everyone, I mean, really, like no, the game is not improved by there being loot boxes, right? But at the end of the day, I do still struggle to like really rip into them because it's like I've played dozens of hours of Valorant or of League of Legends and I've never spent money and I've enjoyed the games, right? And so it's like, you know, same thing with Unite. If somebody can download Unite and they can play 10, 20, 30 hours and have fun, maybe they're not the best player in the game, maybe they're not the worst player, but they had fun for that time. It is what it is, you know? And another thing, not to like defend Pokemon here, but at least they did announce this like a year ago, right? Like this was, as you could tell from the Reddit post here that was posted October of 2024 and the community post which was posted in September of 2024, Pokemon Unite did give the players about a year's notice, right? A little bit over a year's notice to just sort of prepare themselves and brace themselves, right? And this is one of the things that we kind of see like with New World recently, where New World, you know, Amazon Games kind of came out and said like, hey, the last big update was the last big update. We're kind of just going to leave the servers on for for at least, you know, basically throughout 2026. But if we are going to shut it down earlier, we'll give you like a 6-month notice or something like that, right? And so one of the things that we notice with New World is that once players know that the game is going into end of service, right, it kind of kills people's motivation to play, because the whole point is that you can play and collect things and get better and better and better and experience the new seasons and collect more and do, and like once you know there's an end date, it's like, okay, well, what am I like, why am I even playing? So at least in Pokemon's defense, they didn't wait till the last minute. They gave the Pokemon fans in the Netherlands and in Belgium a year's notice or more, and now we're finally reaching the end of that line, unfortunately for them. So, you know, I respect them for giving them such a tremendous amount of notice that the game was going to be shut down. And again, let me be very clear here, okay? I'm not a fan of the monetization strategy that Pokemon Unite went with, right? But fundamentally, a game of chance is very different from actual gambling, right? And I think this is where a lot of people, you know, if you understand psychology and you study it and everything like that, like obviously there are reasons why these games make so much money, right? Because you get hooked on the gambling aspect of it, but it's actually fundamentally very different from gambling in that when you spend money on these games, you know your money's gone, right? There is no chance of getting it back or more. That's one of the most insidious things about gambling, is that you think that if you spend $5, $10, $20 that you have the chance of winning 10, 15, 20 million dollars or $1,000, whatever the case might be. You think that there is a chance that your actual standing in the world can be improved through gambling. Everyone knows if you open a loot box on Pokemon Unite, you know that whatever money you spend is just thrown in the incinerator, right? Or at least you should know that, right? Beyond that, the other thing that really differentiates this the loot box system from actual gambling is chasing losses. So, you know, you could make the argument that you spend 20, 30 bucks on Pokemon Unite, you don't get the item you want, and so now you want to spend even more to get that item, but you're never chasing the money that you lost. And that's one of the things that traps gambling addicts, is that they're down $1,000 and they think, well, man, I can't go home now. I can't go home down 1,000. I'm gonna have to keep playing until I at least make some money back. It's better to go home down 500 than down 1,000, right? And next thing you know, they're down 1,700. You know what I mean? That's the scary part about gambling. And I think, you know, people who haven't actually gambled don't know that there's a very big difference between a loot box and actual gambling. It's way more insidious if you actually gamble. So again, objectively, there are very big differences between loot boxes and gambling. And so, you know, should loot boxes be illegal? I sure, right? I can see why people would say that, but I just don't think that it makes sense to actually classify them as gambling when they're not actually gambling, if that makes sense. In fact, I would argue opening Pokemon cards is more like gambling than opening a loot box on Unite, because there's digital goods are digital. It's gone. It's poof. It's fairy dust. It's not even real. There's no actual supply and demand there. It's just a game of chance. Whereas when you open a pack of Pokemon cards, now you've bought something tangible and you're buying for the chance of getting the full art, secret rare, shiny, reverse holo, hidden artwork, whatever the case might be, right? And you spend the $5 on a pack and you get a card that's worth 100, right? Now there's actual financial value there. You could sell that card and actually walk away better off, right? So in that way, it's like, man, you know, if you're going to ban loot boxes, you should probably ban Pokemon cards as well. I mean, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. If those two things aren't simultaneously banned, kind of like you got to do all or nothing, in my opinion. But again, this is a much more nuanced discussion, and I know that maybe I have a less popular opinion on this, but again, when we look at the fact that the game is free, really changes things for me personally. If this game was $60, $70, $80 and also had loot boxes on there, it's like, oh, okay, now you're pushing it when it comes to me being lenient with you. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's a free to play game. It sucks that these people, you know, have spent years playing the game, collecting things, making progress, getting better at the game, and now it's just going to go away, all because the government has classified this as gambling, when again, I think pretty objectively it's not actually gambling. It's just a game of chance. And is that scummy? Totally, right? Totally get it, especially if kids are playing the games. But we'll see. I think a lot of people actually are fans of this. I think a lot of people want to see loot boxes banned, right? Because really, loot boxes don't actually have any benefit to the player. You know what I mean? Like, besides the excitement of potentially getting something good for a low investment, right? There's actually no value to the player to not knowing what you're getting. This is what I hated about the whole blind box thing, like with Labubus or whatever. Like, it's annoying that everything is a game of chance now, right? And so I can understand why gamers, myself included, I've spent plenty of money on these monetization strategies, okay? Not even trying to hide it, straight up. And so would gaming be better without this stuff? For sure. But hey, it is at least the reason why the games are free to begin with. So I don't know, we're gonna have to find a middle ground here. Clearly Fortnite, League of Legends, I think they found a really good middle ground where you don't actually need games of chance to make a boatload of money, right? So hopefully more games can adopt their monetization strategy and move forward in that way, but we'll have to wait and see. And if they don't adapt and change, and if more places do ban this type of thing, then you can expect Pokemon Unite to probably shut their doors, right? And who knows, you know, if the United States or Japan actually had some legislation like this, would they then change their rules, right? And I think they might, because I mean, these are the regions where they make the most money, and they would have a financial incentive to change the way the game works if their biggest markets were affected, but they weren't, so they won't. So we'll have to wait and see. So I know my thoughts and opinions have been all over the place with regards to this topic, so let me just wrap this up here. Should loot boxes ultimately be illegal? Yeah, probably. Even though they're not technically gambling, I think there's really no actual value to the individual player that is spending their money. But do I blame Pokemon for doing this? Not really. I mean, this monetization strategy is industry standard for free-to-play games, and it has been for a decade now. And even though there's no benefit to the individual paying customer, there is the benefit to the player base as a whole in the fact that they get to try the game for free without making a financial commitment. So if they don't like the game, then they don't actually lose any money, they can just quit. And two, this monetization strategy allows the game to be free in perpetuity for those who unfortunately cannot afford any video games at all. But guys, if you made it to the end of the video, consider dropping a thumbs up on it. It really helps out the channel a ton. And you guys might think you're subscribed because you've seen a lot of my videos, but you're actually not. Double check down below. And one more time, I want to wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving.